Hell Motel Episode 3 Recap. Full story explained. Episode 3 of Hell Motel takes everything we thought we knew and turns it into a nightmare. The tension that had been simmering through the first 2 episodes finally boils over, and what unfolds is nothing short of brutal group hysteria and mob justice. After the shocking murder of Portia, the group finds itself spiraling into chaos, paranoia, and violence, with Ruby at the center of it all. Let's dive deep into everything that happened in Episode 3, from Ruby's harrowing ordeal to Crow's dark past and the group's descent into madness. Ruby wakes to a nightmare. The episode picks up immediately after the discovery of Portia's mutilated body. Ruby, her partner, wakes from a drug-induced sleep, unaware of the horror that happened just inches away from her. When she sees Portia's lifeless body, her heart torn out, Ruby goes into shock. In her confused grief, she tries to place the heart back into Portia's chest, believing, in some subconscious way, that it might save her. Her screams bring the rest of the group running. What they find is gut-wrenching. Ruby, covered in blood, cradling Portia's heart. Crow immediately turns to suspicion. He points out that Ruby was the only one in the room and questions how she could sleep through such a brutal killing. The knife used in the murder is still in the room, further damning her in the eyes of the group.
Because we caught you. You got cocky after Hemingway.
I didn't kill him either.
Ruby becomes the scapegoat. Despite Paige's efforts to speak up for her, Ruby is quickly labeled the prime suspect. Crow rallies the group, suggesting that Ruby should be restrained for everyone's safety. When Paige finds Ruby outside, emotionally shattered and incoherent, the others follow and forcefully tie her to a chair. They leave her facing Portia's body as if forcing her to confront what they assume is her own crime. Ruby pleads for her innocence, but her words fall on deaf ears. The atmosphere is thick with fear, and no one wants to consider that the real killer might still be among them. While alone in the room, Ruby manages to slip free from her restraints, using the still wet blood on her wrists. She escapes into the basement, hoping to avoid further torment. But her disappearance only escalates the group's panic and bloodlust. The group descends into paranoia. As Ruby hides in the basement, Crow leads the group on a manhunt. Andy tries to inject reason into the situation, pointing out that Ruby hasn't been proven guilty. But Crow insists that they're acting out of caution, not malice. This is the turning point. The group, driven by fear, ego, and a desire for control, starts to morph into something darker. When they find Ruby again, she panics and grabs Paige as a hostage, not to harm her, but to try to buy herself an escape from the violent mob. But the group sees it as a sign of guilt. Adriana lunges in first, stabbing Ruby to free Paige. And then the rest follow one by one, turning into a collective frenzy. Ruby is brutally murdered in a barrage of stabs, with only Andy and Kawayan refusing to participate. The fallout of Ruby's death. After the savage murder, the group fractures. Andy, Paige, and Kawayan are left reeling in horror at what the others have done. Blake, who joined in the stabbing, is visibly traumatized, guilt gnawing at him. But for others like Adriana, Shirley, and Floyd, the experience has awakened something sinister. Crow, instead of reflecting on the consequences, seems almost proud of the unity the killing has inspired in the group. Ruby's death doesn't bring them closer to the truth. It pushes them deeper into delusion. And all the while, one critical question remains unanswered. Who really killed Portia?
Who are you?
A look into Crow's past. Through a series of flashbacks, we learn that this isn't Crow's first foray into vigilante justice. 10 years ago, during a previous investigation into the same serial killer, Crow had approached the police claiming he could speak to the dead. His insight led to the rearrest of a previously cleared suspect. But things didn't go as planned. That suspect had already lost everything, his job, his family, because of the original accusation. He kept satanic books, which only made him seem more suspicious. But during the interrogation, Crow instructed the officer to ask about the demon involved in the ritual killings. Just hearing the demon's name sent the suspect into a panic, and in a moment of horror, he bit into his own wrist and bled to death. It was only after his death that his alibi checked out again. He was innocent. Crow never faced consequences for the death he caused. Instead, it emboldened him, and in the present, we see that he hasn't changed. Ruby's blood is now on his hands, just like the suspect from 10 years ago.
performing Sabbath deeds with the sure hand of your righteous indignation.
A killer in disguise. Even with Ruby dead, the killings don't stop. Shirley and Floyd, who are now fully immersed in their bloodlust, decide to continue the cycle, but their plans hit a terrifying roadblock. When Floyd puts on the killer's mask and robe and sets out to claim his next victim, he's ambushed by someone else wearing the exact same disguise. The real killer. Floyd is nearly killed, only surviving because Shirley arrives just in time to save him. This confirms what some of them had quietly feared. Ruby wasn't the killer. The murderer is still among them, hiding in plain sight. Crow meets a grisly end. As the group starts to suspect that they may have made a terrible mistake, Crow begins to unravel. He starts having more intense visions, just like he did in the past, visions of Caitlin, the original victim from 30 years ago. But this time, the vision doesn't just bring warnings. It brings death. The killer finds Crow in his bed, drags him to the basement where Caitlin and Ruby were both killed, and reenacts the killer's ritualistic murder. Crow sees Caitlin again just as nails are hammered into his skull. His fate is sealed, and the man who claimed to be closest to the truth becomes another victim of his own obsession. The horror isn't over. Episode 3 ends with the chilling revelation that not only is the real killer still alive, but they may be working within the group or manipulating them from the shadows. Shirley and Floyd, despite their near-death experience, are still too deep in the thrill of violence to walk away. Andy, Paige, and Kawayan now know how dangerous their companions are, but they're trapped in this nightmare with nowhere to run. The motel has become a slaughterhouse. And if Ruby's death taught us anything, it's that justice is the first casualty when fear takes over. Final thoughts. Hell Motel Episode 3 is the series' most brutal chapter yet. It forces viewers to confront the true terror, not just of the killer in the shadows, but of what people become when fear and paranoia overtake reason. The episode showcases how groupthink and suspicion can spiral into mob violence. Ruby's tragic death is a horrifying reminder that innocence isn't enough to save you when the crowd is desperate for a scapegoat. Crow's arc serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked belief in one's own righteousness. His death, though gruesome, feels like a form of justice for the lives he's indirectly destroyed. But the true horror still lurks in the shadows of the motel. With the killer still out there, and the group more fractured than ever, it's clear that the worst is yet to come. Episode 4 promises to dig even deeper into the madness, and after this explosive chapter, nothing and no one is safe anymore. And that wraps up everything that went down in Hell Motel Episode 3, a brutal, tension-filled chapter where suspicion turned into slaughter and fear revealed everyone's darkest instincts. With Ruby and Crow both gone and the real killer still hiding in plain sight, the group is more fractured and vulnerable than ever. As the line between hunter and hunted blurs, one thing is certain: no one is getting out of this motel unscarred. If you're enjoying the twisted mystery of Hell Motel, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our breakdown of the next episode. Drop your theories in the comments. Who do you think the real killer is? Until next time, stay safe and never trust the crowd.